All right, Kevin, first question's the easiest or the hardest, depending on how you look at it. What is your franchise story? How did you accidentally fall into franchising just like everybody else?
Right out of college, I took a sales job with a company called Fastenal, fell in love with selling, and was able to combine my passion for selling along with entrepreneurship, and just fell in love with the idea of actually putting people in business, not with another company and the backing of a franchise and a brand.
So if you go back to day last of not being in franchising to first day in, what was your perception of how franchising worked or didn't work, and how has that evolved over time?
It's evolved with mostly technology, as everything else has evolved. Technology has really put franchising at the forefront. If you look at the way we generate leads for Goddard owners right now and franchisees, we're putting leads in their queue instantaneously. Back when I started franchising, leads and generating marketing was done in a fairly antiquated manual fashion. It's just a very quick business now, and just really ensures the likelihood of success for a franchisee going forward for each brand.
All right. So in the example that you're talking about, and obviously Goddard School has a carried reputation alongside it. So I would, if I'm breaking down the advantage of what you just said, franchising in the current situation that you're in, because of supply and demand, franchisee X opens and there's already a built-in lead generation model versus maybe some other brands that you've seen, and maybe more on the merging side, they open up and the franchisee has to really hustle to get some groundwork. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate for the most part. We pre-sell our lead generation for our schools well before they're open, and we plan alongside with our franchisees through that process. If you were to look back when I first started in franchising 25 plus years ago, everything was off an 800 number and sat into a voicemail box in comparison. So the business is just moving much, much faster.
And so I would imagine from where you stand, would you see increased accountability for the franchisee? Because if lead generation is working for them, then it's up to them to operate the business.
Yeah.
And therefore, if like seeing what the gap is between a high performing franchise owner and a mid to low is probably easier too then, right?
Yeah. Well, my love has always been in sales, and I've had an entire career of sales. It is absolutely true that time does kill all deals, as they say. In this case, the leads that we generate nationally for our franchisees, it's up to the franchisee and the operator to respond to them in a timely fashion. Make sure that their pitch and tour of their facility and their school to the prospective parents is done in a way that's meaningful to them and answers all their questions. So yeah, I think it's a combination. It's a very symbiotic relationship now between the franchisor and franchisee.
From a sales standpoint, I've always looked at franchising as, in my mind, I can't come up with something that is more difficult to sell. You're trying to convince someone to invest their life savings into business they have little to no control over. That seems, and most of the times, switching or jumping careers alongside that, and then also having to secure additional financing for this very, very complex thing. When you look at your life in sales lined up with the complexities of what I just said, how have you navigated those waters to frame your positioning as someone in franchise development?
Yeah, so from a Goddard perspective, we do a lot of hand-holding with our franchisees. So from the beginning in the franchise sales realm, we're actually selling the value of what Goddard brings to the franchisees. But we're not just selling Goddard the brand, we're also selling early childhood education as a segment. And I will say that early childhood education, along with Goddard, is probably one of the best kept secrets in franchising. It's close to a staple, or it is a staple for families that need to go back to work, have dual incomes coming in. So we provide a service and a need that is essential today. Pair with that the value that Goddard drives. with our social emotional development of children through being kind to themselves and others that we teach, really drives home the value to our parents and families. So I think as we said, I think there's a ton of value in not just franchising, but franchising in the early childhood education segment.
What is your salesman superhero skill set that you've gained over your sales career that is yours, not Goddard's, that specifically to Kevin? What is your superhero strength when it comes to sales?
I think my listening skills are always essential when you're in the franchise sales world. You're not and not trying to just drive your message home, but really listen to your customers, understand what they're trying to accomplish. And there have been times where selling them a franchise did not make sense, and just being honest with them that this wasn't the right time for them, or the right franchise for them, and actually, having other segments or areas in which you could point them to and guide them to.
I mean, I think that's a really fair skill set that misses in franchising a lot. Now, part of that is due to CEOs or boards that have unrealistic expectations aligned with sales goals, and therefore a salesperson in your position has to sell, not develop franchisees. When you can develop a franchise owner, at least in my opinion, scale should have a higher likelihood of happening. And if scale happens, then royalties increase and the franchisor makes more money. But it's always been backwards in franchising that some brands sell franchises. So in that scenario that you just gave as your superhero power, to be able to listen and know that you're dealing with someone's most intimate earnings that they've worked hard over their life, you're able to say, well, maybe this isn't the right fit for you. That might be hard for you to hear, but it's not the right fit. But in franchising, I think that's a tough thing for a lot of people that have to sell to hit a board or a CEO goal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the reason we're able to be selective and actually make those recommendations is we do have a growing pipeline. Yeah. So it allows us to actually make those common sense decisions on a daily basis. Not only common sense for Goddard, but also the franchisee or prospect that we're dealing with.
Are you running into a challenge, not that you can't overcome it, in that you've hit size and scale, and so now the markets that you want to expand into have gotten tighter, and therefore you have to find individuals in tighter markets than before when the entire country is wide open?
Yeah, so we approach our markets differently depending on density. We started in the Philadelphia market, and so the density in Philadelphia and Eastern Pennsylvania is fairly tight there. We generally elect to grow with our franchisee, our existing franchise base in those markets. And the amount of demand that our franchisees are requesting to grow, I think shows the health of the Goddard brand in a sense, where if you have franchisees that see that the profitability that the brand drives and want to grow more with you, I think is really, really a great sign. Then we have a pioneer strategy for markets that we don't have any sort of brand presence in. So our strategy there is complete 180 opposite than it would be in the dense markets. And then we have the opportunistic markets where it's traditional sales tactics that take place. You're generating leads off of your websites. You're following up with them in a timely fashion. You're answering any questions you have. You go through the normal cadence of the sales process.
When it comes to the multi-unit operator, obviously you said in Philadelphia or in some of your tighter markets, you're relying on your existing franchisees to scoop up that additional space, because if they can scale, they're going to drive their gross revenues anyway. Do you feel, can a multi-unit franchisee succeed within your business, or does it have to be a Goddard School franchisee first that has to scale? Like if someone from, brand X comes in and says, well, look at my portfolio, Kevin, would you see their odds of success not as good as someone that's actually already been operating in the system?
Yeah, our operators, the success of Goddard is a lot because of our franchisees and how good they are. And we have an owner on-site model. So a multi-school franchisee has to put in their time and create a track record within Goddard for us to approve them for additional schools. So we have a very coordinated approach to growth with our existing franchisees. And then they identify partners that they can go to market with if they want to expand past 1, 2, or 3 schools at that point.
Obviously, lead generation isn't necessarily a challenge for you, but what keeps you up at night, whether it relates to you as a salesperson or you as a salesperson within Goddard?
From a pipeline perspective as well as lead growth perspective, that doesn't keep me up at night at all. The demand for Goddard is really, really strong. We have probably the most precious cargo out of any franchise organization out there. I like to refer to them as the kiddos that we're responsible for on a daily basis. So if there's anything that keeps me up at night, it's the health and safety of those children. Our part of it is making sure that we're recruiting the right franchisees at the right time to own a school and be franchisees of our schools. So again, health and safety of the kids is probably quintessential and keeps me up at night.
Switching gears to the business opportunity. If I said, what's the why now as it relates to Goddard, how would you answer that?
It's the best kept secret in franchising. It's probably a misnomer out there that Goddard is even a franchise opportunity. People pass by them on the road and think it could be an institution that's owned by a corporation or that kind of thing. So trying to get the word out there that there are individuals that can buy a franchise and open a school with 25 faculty and teachers that report up through them, and actually very predictable business. You're not having to sell every single night a new submarine sandwich or maybe a hotel room night. You actually generally have a student in there with good customer service that will be in there for 4 or 5 years. And then you usually generally get the sibling as well along with it, as if you've done a good job of engaging with parents and families. So I think it's a very predictable model, and it can be very profitable from a return standpoint.
All right. So I hear best kept secret, scalability. Mm-hmm. We're doing a lot of the back end work to make ease of operations stronger for you, and then just the business viability as the 4 key reasons. Is that similar to what you just said?
It is. There's also a quality of life issue with it as well. A lot of our franchisees actually are able to teach their children when they open the school as well. So a little bit more face time with your children. And an added benefit, not really a driver, is the fact that we're not open on weekends or evenings as well with a lot of franchisors.
Yeah, I mean, from where I stand, first of all, love what you just said. Second comment is, at the beginning of last year, we started profiling all the franchisees that we work with, typically around an opening or a signing. Started asking them more about their buyer journey and what kept them up at night, what got them over the edge. And there's only one reason people become franchisees still at everybody that we've profiled. That's something for their family. It could be legacy. It could be I'm trying to build better lifestyle. I want more wealth, whatever it is, it has to relate to family. Mm-hmm. So I love these questions because I think in today's digital world, and we can go back to the answer to your first question on what has changed in franchising, that digital has added, or technology has added a whole new component. I like listening to what you said, and then I look at what is a ghost seeing right now. And all those 4 points, like I see a picture of a building, I should see a picture of my family because I'm closed on weekends. Yeah. Best kept secret in franchising, we're just touting ourselves as an entrepreneur brand right now. And so I listened to what you just said. I'm like, that's not the story you're telling. And it's so awesome. But sometimes closing those little gaps, because you know it, for whatever reason, just doesn't articulate over to a website. And so right now you're selling Goddard the building. Yep. When you have something that's pretty magical in what you just said.
Yep. Yeah. And, we do spend a lot of time in the sales process, just talking to folks, understanding what their wants and needs are, and being more conversational. So a lot of that does come through in the conversations that we have. Our sales cycle is probably a little elongated from some of the other franchise organizations, because we want to make sure that our potential franchisees and prospects have thought about this offering and have embraced it by the time they're buy ready.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Kevin, so there's a ghost out there. They've listened to our discussion so far. What do you want them to know about this opportunity that might push them over the edge that we haven't talked about so far?
There's so many different things. Folks that have a passion for education and especially educating children, you have a lot of. So there's always the financial benefit. I mean, our average franchisee in 2022 that was fully ramped up, which means, open school for 18 months, they made $465,000 in EBITDA last year. And if you were to look at our item 19 in our franchise offer, FDD, we actually disclose every one of our schools' performance numbers, top line as well as bottom line EBITDA. So I would always invite people to look at that, and the return on investment is certainly there. But there's one thing that is not in any of our marketing materials, not in any FDD out there. It's the work that we do. The fact that we're giving back to the world, making the world a better place through teaching children is something that it doesn't come through in any of those marketing materials. It's one of the special things that we have at Goddard. I'm sure we have it at the other early childhood education franchises out there, but it's certainly here at Goddard. Just knowing that our mission in life makes the world a better place is certainly something that you would miss through the website.
Love it, Kevin. You're calm and collected in your approach. I feel like I'm buying from you as you're talking. So that's a good sign. Really appreciate you sharing your franchise story and the story of Goddard. For Kevin, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.